Welcome to the 24th episode of the Perfectly Imperfect Spiritual Podcast. My today's guest, Jordan Duvall, is an award-winning creative director who has worked for top Los Angeles entertainment advertising agencies, The Ant Farm, BLT and Associates, NBC and Universal, and has consulted for celebrities, networks, and some of the world's most recognized brands. Her work has been used to market blockbuster hits such as Lord of the Rings, Spider-Man, and The Voice. She is the founder of Ignite Your Soul brand, a brand and website design studio specializing in high converting brands, show it websites for coaches, creatives, and wellness brand using a unique blend of strategy, color psychology, and visual storytelling. Welcome, Jordan, to the podcast.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Marta. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm very, very honored that you just agreed to come to the podcast. And as you know, I don't believe in coincidences, and I was guided to you. For anyone who just doesn't know, I took part in Jordan's Magnetic Brand Elite program. I was looking for someone who could help me with marketing and branding, and I searched within Gabby Bernstein's membership because I really wanted a recommendation from someone who was equally intuitive. So that's how our paths crossed. So I was wondering whether we could start that conversation because I think this is one of the many things that makes you so different from many of the other marketing branding specialists is that you actually do believe in the universe. You do believe that there is something far greater than ourselves. And along with your highly analytical brain, you also believe in magic and intuition. So would you be able to mention a little bit about that, how it started, that you've incorporated that magic into your business?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely a unique blend. I think we all sort of are guided to a place in our business, and my niche sort of found me. I got into the coaching world and I've just been really on my own self-discovery, growth and healing journey for, really, I mean, my whole life really, but like majorly for like the last 10 years. So through that process, I really started to work with a lot of healers, like work with mediums and sound healers and Akashic records readers and psychics and you name it, tarot card readers, just to really give me guidance and help me really on my path to self discovery and really create the life that I desire. And so through that personal growth journey and also working with, healers and experts in the energy field, I really understood it from both sides. I understood it from like a branding, marketing, business perspective, right? From my background in like more of the, strategic network marketing agency world, but also having experienced that sort of service and healing from these providers, I really understood the inside of their business. And a lot of times, people that do work in this world, it's the world of the unseen. It's, very ephemeral, it's very ethereal, it's a very feeling based thing. How do you really quantify it? And so, using my expertise in branding and marketing and strategy, I also weave together all the brands that I create are built on color psychology. So that's really the foundation, is the psychology around the color, the feeling, the energetics of color. And I've also gotten a certification as a master NLP practitioner. So through really understanding how the subconscious mind works, I really wove together the subconscious mind and subconscious storytelling with the color energetics and with really like the practical, strategic know-how of business, and created this special way of delivering branding and marketing in a
Mm-hmm.
very unique way. And I am a big believer in magic in my own life. And so I definitely infuse that into my own business and then also how I work with my clients.
Mhm. Beautiful. Thank you so much. And as you can see, I'm using all of the photographs that you help to direct and that you help to co-create. And it's interesting because when I met you, I was in another marketing program and I was coming up with my own program that I put on hold because I truly believe that I need to feel it like 100% with my soul and heart, that this is something that I really want to do. And mediumship, it's something that ignites my soul. So I have repurposed photographs for the time being, and I've been using it for something that really brings me joy. And I really find all those photographs useful because, as you've mentioned, it is that intangible that I wanted people to see. So, would you be able to talk a little bit more about the importance actually of colors and anything about how our subconscious minds work in terms of making those decisions? And I'm sure so many other intuitives will be then converted because maybe they don't realize that the aesthetics and the really beautiful quality of photographs might be relevant. So I'm
Yeah,
curious.
absolutely. I mean, how much time do you have? I could be here all day.
Yes, yeah, let's talk.
um, Yeah, great question. So, there's lots of different ways to come at color psychology. I work with color psychology with the framework of, there's more to color than just color, right? So I really build color psychology through the lens of seasonal color analysis. And so when you look at it that way and you take into consideration each season, each season really has its own energy, it has its own vibe, it has its own color palette, and it really has its own energy. And when you think about that, right? So, like summer, for example, summer, and you're a summer, summer has these like long summer days, the lights are cooler, there's like this romanticism to it. There's more like ethereal, ephemeral, like the lighting is softer. And so when you really dive down into, what kind of lines do you have? What sort of colors? What sort of shapes? What sort of patterns? What sort of textures? Right. So, like, I get really, really granular down to like the nitty gritty. And this is where, when you work with me and my team through your visual branding, right? Like, now we do websites as well. So it's like really weaving this color psychology through, what sort of photographer is going to make the most sense? What's their style? Are they going to really be able to read your energy and bring that to life? What sort of location are you going to be putting yourself in that is going to tie back to the story that you're telling and the subconscious story and the subconscious visual cues that you want to embed into your imagery? Right, because you really want someone to like look at the images and have a sense of who you are without having to say a word. So
Mhm.
when you get clear on that and then you can embed those visual cues into your images, people already can pick up what you're putting down, so to speak, right? And keeping in mind, what sort of fabrics are you wearing? What sort of textures? What sort of colors, right? What sort of feeling do all of these things create when you merge them together? And it's really, really critical when you are creating a color palette that the colors are cohesive within the unit, right? I see so many brands that, there's lots of different ways that people can choose color. And I have gone through lots of different evolutions of choosing color for my clients and teaching my clients to choose color in different ways. And I've finally landed on a way that actually works, right? Because a lot of these other ways, there's not really like an underlying framework and thread that ties it all together with the greater lens of like the energetics and the subconscious, right? And so you want to really keep in mind who the audience is, what the business is, what are the offers, what are the feelings, because I'll go through and create someone's color palette, their seasonal color palette, and then from there, typically there's 17 colors and then there's like 4 to 5 variations of each color. So, I don't have a calculator
Mhm.
right there, but that's a lot of colors, right? So from there, it's like, well, how do we want to go into the brand, right? Like, is it more of a feminine brand? Then maybe we want to lean more into some of the pinks and the purples. Is it a gender neutral brand? Like, I'm working with a client right now and she was working with men and women. Now she's opted just to work with men. So I was like, all right, so we definitely don't want to lean into any overly feminine colors because that's going to alienate men, tactically and subconsciously. So really keeping that in mind. And then, especially if I'm working with a healer, it's like, well, we want to make sure that your colors create a calming feeling, right? Whatever that may be. And so it's really understanding what the underlying feeling is, and then using that and like the brand words to really guide the selection of colors, and then making sure that all the colors are harmonious unto themselves. So you want to make sure that all the colors really are rooted in a unit, as opposed to like, I'm going to have a bright yellow and then I'm going to have a like a gray and then I'm going to have this, right? It doesn't have this overall harmony. And I've talked to so many, business owners, and they're just like, I don't really know what's wrong with my brand. And I'm like, can I see your brand? Let me see your fonts, let me
Mm-hmm.
see your colors. And I can tell in an instant. I'm like, your colors are not harmonious. They're fighting together. And so because you have like different tones and different hues and different saturations that are not calibrated to work as a unit, they're actually fighting against each other and they're turning people away. And I have a great like real life example. Is I was brought in to consult for a sleep company, and my contact brought me in and they were like, we're not making sales. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
well, can I see your website? I want to see your website. So they showed me their website and I'm like, you're selling sleep products, yet your website and your visual brand is red, white, and gray. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
what about this is congruent with sleep? I was like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
having like a panic attack just looking at your red. Like, if you want me to like think about sleep and get relaxed and really like, get into that space, you need to have colors that are going to evoke that emotion and lead me in that direction. So I, had this consulting conversation with them and they changed their colors and they started to notice an uptick in their sales and an uptick in engagement and an uptick of people staying on their site because they kept their colors in mind. And I think that this is often a very overlooked piece because people just, they're not educated in it. They just kind of toss it to the side and don't really think anything of it. And, when you come and look at the clients that I work with, everything is built on color. And people are like, wow, it just feels so good. I can tell your clients from a mile away. And I'm like, yes, because there's an underlying framework that ties it all together. And there's a reasoning behind everything. It's not just like haphazardly making choices that like happen to end up in some sort of result.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. And I agree about the importance of the color in terms of making decisions. And it's one of those components that so many other marketing specialists overlook, or they don't really find it important whatsoever. Uh, for those healers, intuitives who might be overwhelmed and might not maybe have any knowledge in terms of their branding, marketing, like, can they still get in touch with you? Would you be able to still get them more clarity in terms of like what their brand is about? Like, are you able to support
Yeah,
intuitives with
absolutely. If
that
there's someone out
aspect?
there that's listening to this and they're like, please help me, like,
Yes.
please email me and I'm happy to talk to you and see what's the best way that I can support you, because I really believe in supporting this niche in the world. I really believe that I am where I am in my life because of the support that I've gotten in like the spiritual healing and the spiritual guidance. And I think, there's also a lot of limiting beliefs around this niche that, it's kind of an alternative living path, right? So there's like, why would people pay for this and what it is that I'm doing? And so I think, a lot of that is because people will play into really like stereotypical visual representations of what it is they do, right? Like, you
Hmm.
know, the crazy psychic lady with the,
Yes, that's what I
cosmos in the
didn't want.
background. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Right. We've all seen it. And you're just kind of like, well, how do I express that I have this connection to the divine and that I can support you in this way? Well, this is how other people do it. So I guess that I'll do that. And there's typically a negative connotation to that. People don't respect it. They don't look up, up to it. They don't feel that there's a value in it. And so when you can really dig below the surface and go to that deeper level
Hmm.
and understand how to express what you do through a subconscious way and also through feeling and color, then it really changes things because now people receive you and they're like, they have this underlying sense of trust and they don't really know where it's coming from. And it's because you're tapping into all these different subconscious modalities and attracting people to you and building that trust straight out the gate.
Hmm. Beautiful. I also work with women and I help them to develop their intuition, but I also help them to be more confident and for them to love themselves more. And I really think you're such an inspiring woman. And would you be able to talk a little bit about your own journey in terms of gaining your confidence, in terms of being seen and heard? And perhaps about the importance of investing in yourself, because I think that's one of the limiting beliefs when so many people don't want to do. And I truly believe money is energy, and like, yes. So I'm
Yeah,
wondering what's your story.
absolutely. Well, I mean, we'll just call out the elephant in the room. I mean, it's scary to invest in yourself. You don't know what's going to happen. Can you, I mean, really, it's like, can you really trust yourself to make the money back from this investment? I am actually taking a course right now, and they have this like sheet where you have to fill out the homework so that you can qualify for this specific thing. And in there they said something like, what usually stands in your way of finishing programs, like what holds you back? And I just wrote, I finish programs. I was like, that's like, I only say yes when I know that I can commit to it, and I make
Yes.
it a priority, and that becomes that, right? Because I've made this investment in myself, and I'm going to commit to that, right? And I've also done a lot of work around, some like cognitive dissonance, right? Like where you
Hmm.
think one thing and do another. So I think that's really important to pay attention to, is if you say you want something and then you're not getting those results, where's the disconnect? So that's really important. But in terms of, really finding my confidence, I think one, it was just really getting very clear and making that commitment to myself of like, I'm going to do this no matter what. This is scary. Some days I have no idea what I'm doing. I might be happy, sad, panic attack, and
Hmm.
like joyous all within a 15-minute interval, or maybe an hour, or maybe a whole day. And just understanding, how to navigate the journey of our emotional waves. And also, I've really been learning a lot about the nervous system, and I've been really, really diving into it a lot lately, and really understanding, that the way that our mind reacts is typically a result of what's going on in our nervous system, and
Hmm.
potentially a trauma response, right? And it doesn't have to be a big T trauma. It could be something small, but really
Hmm.
understanding how our bodies react to our environment around us, and how we fall prey to patterns that we've had throughout our lives, and really giving yourself grace of like, oh, I understand why I reacted this way, because this is a pattern that I had in place. And I think when we don't dig deeper into the somatics of it, it can be so easy to blame yourself that you're doing something wrong. But when you really understand that it's like a physical biological reaction in your body, and that is creating the thoughts in your mind, it really changes how you perceive yourself. So that's really given me another layer of grace, of really understanding that, like, I had something happen a little bit earlier today, and I just was like, I feel off. I don't know why I feel off. What's like, something's off, and I want to be present. So I actually laid down on my Shakti mat and listened to some, some like healing music, and was like, all right,
Hmm.
we're ready to go. So I think it's like really paying attention to your state. And I learned this from Tony Robbins many years ago. It's like, you have the power to change your state in a second. So really
Hmm.
being conscious of where is your state. And if you're kind of feeling funky or upset or sad, like, you can change that in a second. And the way you do that may vary, right? It may be a walk, it may be a run, it may be meditation, it could be a shower, it could be walking outside with your shoes off, it could be calling a friend. I journal at the end of every day, and I finally have gotten into a good end of day journaling practice. But, I think about like what gave me energy today, and I start to notice the patterns of what makes me feel better. And one of the things that always makes me feel better is like connecting with my friends. So, you know, sometimes that's helpful. So it's really paying attention to what is going to put you in a positive state of mind and change that. And back to the confronting of the fears. It's funny because I have a lot of people reach out to me, they're like, oh my gosh, you're so good on video, like you look like a
Hmm.
natural. And I'm like, oh, I was like, thank you, I appreciate that. And this has taken years of work to get here. I mean, back when I first started, I would literally, I had a full-time job at the time, and I would spend all day working up the courage to go and be like, all right, we're gonna make a video when I get home.
Hmm.
And I would get home and I'd put the camera out, and I'd be like, push the button, and it would count down. I'm like, I have what I'm going to say. I'm going to get ready. And then it would go live. And I'm like, oh, and I would turn it off. And I mean, it took me months. I was so anxious. And I think it really was the commitment and the decision, and then the practice. right? Just doing it over and over and over again and just really failing forward. Like, oh, I didn't do that well, or I messed that up, or, this happened, or whatever it is.
Hmm.
And just being like, all right, we're all human. I'm doing my best. I'm not perfect. And just keep going, because it's through that sense of repetition that you really begin to understand, to articulate what it is that you're actually doing. Because I think in the beginning, we're just like hit with downloads or guidance or instinct or intuition, and we're just doing it. And we're like, I don't really know what's happening, but I'm just kind of doing this thing. And then over time, you learn how to language it.
Hmm. And for anyone, this is not an, I think this is not an age related question, but for anyone who's still looking for their purpose, because I believe we can change our profession at any time. You are clearly fulfilling yourself in your business. It feels like it might be even an extension of who you are. It's all like very, very coherent. But would you be able to tell the viewers and listeners about your own story? Have you always known that you're going to work with colors? How has it started? And how would you encourage people, no matter what their age is, to find their purpose?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like you said, it all comes in different shapes and sizes. And, I've known my whole life really what I was going to do. I've always been creative. And I actually got a sign when I think I was 15 or 16. And, when I was younger, I was creative. And my parents were like, oh no, like, we have a creative kid. What are we going to do? We're like, we got to put her in some sort of direction so she's not a starving artist. So they kind of pointed, they're like, look this way in the world of graphic
Mhm,
design. And I was like, oh, that was fun. So they kind of guided me in that way. And then when I was, I think 15 or 16, I went and I took a class at Art Center College of Design. And one of our exercises was we had to create a shopping bag. And I was, at this time, I'm probably dating myself, but Esprit was really popular. And I'm like, oh, I want to make an Esprit bag. And I just,
mhm,
I've learned what creativity is and how to have a relationship with my creativity, but I didn't really understand it at the time, but I got this idea of doing these like big loopy flowers. And I was like, oh, it'd be fun to do it in like lime green, orange, yellow, and magenta. So I had this idea, made, did the drawings, painted the things, cut them out, made the bag, and turned it in, went about my merry way. No joke, 2 months later, I walk into the Esprit store, and the pattern that I had created in class was on a bag in the Esprit store. And I was like,
wow.
what? Am I like, am I hallucinating? Like, what's happening right now? Am I tripping? Like, this is crazy. And I don't have that bag anymore, but I remember creating it and being like, okay. And it just was this like overwhelming sense of knowing of like, you're on the right path. And I was like, I don't understand this. I don't know what happened. I don't have any answers to this at all. But this clearly happened. And to me, it's like a sign saying, like, keep going this way. So it was really from that point forward that I knew I was on the right path. So I went to college and I studied graphic design and photography, and I still do graphic design and photography in some fashion to this day. And I probably will always do some element of design and photography because, you know, I'm just, that's just really innately what I'm good at and what I really enjoy doing. And I just, over time I've learned how to weave them together in a different way. I came from agencies in Los Angeles working on movie posters. So it was definitely more of like a strategic commercial twist.
Mhm,
And then once I started my business, Ignite Your Soul brand, I started to weave in, it's been like layers, like really understanding the subconscious, understanding the magic piece, understanding the coincidences, and, how to really tune into your inner world and have it reflected in your outer world. So I've just really followed that sense. And so, I think if you're out there and you don't really know what your purpose is, I think it can come in a lot of different shapes and sizes. And I think we can really put a lot of pressure on ourselves of like, I have to know what my purpose is. And,
mhm,
it doesn't, you don't, your purpose doesn't have to be, you're going to like change the world, right? Your
mhm,
purpose could be like, I want to enjoy my work and I want to pay it forward to other people. And you can
mhm,
also change the way you deliver your purpose, right? Like
mhm,
in the past, I was doing more coaching, and then I was doing more photo direction, and now I'm doing more websites. So it's like, the way that I deliver my gifts and my purpose can come in different ways, but ultimately it's really to use my innate skill set to help my clients like truly become aligned and shine so that people recognize them and they want to hire them. And there's a level of trust built in, a level of credibility, right? Just coming from my background of advertising and working with the most talented people in the industry, I just have an innate sense of like what high quality looks like. And that's just how I operate and what I deliver. And so I think that it's, really that grace and understanding and just putting one foot in front of the other some days. I mean, honestly, some days
Hmm.
that's all you can do.
Hmm. Very beautiful. Uh, could you tell the viewers and listeners perhaps about the types of transformations that you're taking your clients through? I know that every transformation, every client is unique, but like apart from the monetary gains and then the increase in sales, what are the other types of transformations that you have witnessed throughout the years of supporting various business owners?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would say at the root of everything is confidence. And so one of the reasons that I really love the color work is, I weave the color work into style and into embodiment. And I have a styling team, and if you really want to get the full effect of working with me, it makes sense to do the whole thing, right? To like come in and do the photo shoot. And I've, tweaked how I do photo shoot work with people because now I have a certification to teach people my process. So I've really streamlined it. And, but going through the whole process of like, finding out the colors and then having it woven into your style and have it woven into your story and then working with a photographer and having your images and then having the design aesthetics carry through into your branding and into your website. Like that's really the full package of a journey. And, it's not an overnight thing. And I think that the biggest thing that I've heard my clients reflect back to me is like, I had this sense of who I was becoming and who I wanted to become. And I didn't know how to get there. And working with you and seeing my photos and then seeing my website, like the person that I feel inside is now outside of me. And I see that person. And, sometimes there's like a cognitive disconnect of like, wait, is that really me?
Hmm.
And so, I remember there had one client, and this was like earlier on in my business. And we did her photo shoot and then, carried that over into her social media and all these things. And we did her photo shoot like in January. And then come September, I'd reached out to her to just check in and see how she was doing. And she'd crossed the $500,000 mark. And she was at
Hmm.
$27,000 in
Wow.
January.
Hmm.
And I was just like, what? I was like, that's
Hmm.
amazing. I'm like, how did this happen? She's like, well, I had this sense of who I wanted to be and how I wanted to show up and what this woman looked like and felt like. And I just felt her inside. And once I worked with you and I, had a sense of my colors and I had a sense of my style and I had the visual representation with my photos, I really saw this woman outside of me. And she's like, I wanted to wake up every day and show up and be this person. So she's like, I showed up differently. I showed up stronger, bolder. I did the things I didn't necessarily want to do. I did the hard things. So it really gave her that. I think a lot of it is like self trust and confidence of like who I see and feel inside is actually real. And now it's time to show up. And I think that there can be kind of two paths in that is sometimes I've seen people go that route and then they just like fully own it, step up. It's amazing. And then sometimes they have a freeze response and they're like, oh my God, is that really me? I'm scared. I don't want to show up.
Hmm.
Right. So, when I can recognize that, sometimes I'll reach out and be like, let's go. Right. But like another good example is like I had a client who was having a book launch and I
Hmm.
was just like, are you really going to go through all this time, money, energy, effort to create a TEDx talk and launch a book and use these images that have no sense of professionalism and elevation and do not position you as an authority at all? Like, are you really going to go through all that to come out and use that to market yourself? Or are you going to go through this process of really stepping in and becoming this leader and this authority that you desire to be and you're taking actions towards so that when you come out the other end of creating these things, the visual representation of how you're marketing yourself isn't aligned with where you want to be. And so she was like, like we all are, she was nervous and scared to take the leap of faith
Hmm.
and to invest in herself, but she did it. And it just changed the name of the game, right? Like her book skyrocketed to number one. She really showed up differently. Like she wasn't showing up on social media at all. She started showing up every day. And I noticed that with you as well, right? Like a lot of
Hmm.
my clients, they don't show up on social media or they'll do it a little bit here and there. And then once we work together and they have these beautiful images, they're showing up, they're doing videos, they're doing reels, they're doing posts because they feel that level of confidence and, they've committed to themselves to show up.
Yes, and you know that I've only started, and I've told you that we'll be working again at some point because it was my first experience with a professional photo shoot, and I can recommend it to anyone because I did it for my business, but also I wanted to really do it for myself because for a very, very long time I wanted to have a color analysis, and I as a well, psychic medium. Well, I work for myself, and it is me who is a personal brand as well. And I just wanted to be that to represent it like really, really well. I didn't want to be one person
Right.
in the online world and then offline someone else. So getting that clarity and like finding out about my colors and then going through that photo shoot that I actually really enjoyed added lots of confidence. Uh, and I really feel more empowered. And I've never thought that actually I will be doing lives. I've never thought that I would have podcasts. So I think I can recommend to anyone because it was scary for me as well. And I do remember I really wanted to work with you, like before even like hearing what you were well selling and what you were doing. I just had that intuitive nudge that you are going to be able to help me to bring my business to another level. So there was that sense of knowing. But could you talk about the importance of how you're helping people to become that like one person, how you're bringing all those layers so that we don't have to be someone else in the business world and we can also be the same person in the offline world because you never know where you're going to actually meet your ideal soulmate clients, and I think it makes such a difference when you have the clarity of who you are, when you have a clarity of the colors you should be wearing. So yeah, I'm
Yeah,
curious about that.
absolutely. And I think this is a great thing to talk about because, who here who's listening has seen someone online and you have a sense of them. And then you see them in person, either they live in your neighborhood or you go to a conference and you're just like, huh? like, I'm confused. Like my brain is exploding because I thought you were this person, but you're really this person. And like, who's like, it's like, really, will the real Slim Shady please stand up? You're like, who's the real person here? I don't understand. Right. And it just, to me, that's the biggest erosion of trust because I'm just like, who's the real you? And now I'm like totally freaked out. Like I can feel my body
Mhm.
having an attack just thinking about people that I've experienced this with. And it's just like, I don't really trust you because I don't like, what am I really getting? What's happening here? So to me, just like as a person, integrity is one of my biggest values. So it's like, what you
Mhm.
see is what you get, right? Like, like I'm
Mhm.
just going to say it like it is, I'm going to share what I see and, ask for permission if people want to hear it, right? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but I'm just be like, this could be better. Or have you considered doing this? Right. And, I think it's really about one, it's like owning your light and shadow, right? So it's like obviously starts with you of like understanding, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and accepting that, but also understanding the different facets of who you are and what makes you a person, a person in the world. What do you enjoy doing? And how do you want to connect with people? So, we really spend a lot of time in the front end of working with clients of figuring out, who are you? What is it that you want to represent to the world? What part of you do you want to weave into your brand? Because, a lot of the clients that we work with, their personal brands, some of them have like merchandising arms to their business, but a lot of times they're the face of their business, whether the business is named after them or not. They're out there, people are connecting with them. So it's really important to understand, what is it that you want people to see about you, right? What do you want to share? And then put that out there so that people are resonating with you. Like for one example, I worked with a woman. She used to work in corporate and she has a certification as a coach. And also she's an astrologer. And I was like, okay, great. Like there's a lot of people out there that are coaches and astrologers or both. Like what makes you different, right?
Mhm.
And so, one of the things that's really important to her is health and fitness. And I'm just like, I think we should do some images that showcase your love of health and fitness, because there are people out there that they don't care about health and fitness, and that's
Mm-hmm.
totally fine, but they're not going to be attracted to that. But there's going to be people out there that do resonate with health and fitness. And when they see that you embody that, they're going to be more likely to want to work with you, or at least communicate with you to find out if they want to
Mm-hmm.
work with you. So it's really figuring out, what is that and how do you want to represent that, right? Some people really have a lot, like they showcase a lot of pictures of their kids and their families. Like that's cool. I just choose not to showcase my family
Mm-hmm.
online. That's just like that's my personal life, and then I have my business life. And some people they do, and that's, people are like, "Oh, I connect with you on motherhood or whatever it may be." So it's really figuring out of like where do you want those points of connections to be? What is important to you? What do you stand for? A, and then B, how do we then convey that and showcase that out there so that your visuals and your messaging is expressing that, so people have a sense of that. And then the color piece is a whole other element, because I was pegged as the wrong colors since I was 16, and I was like always like, I hated shopping, I always felt drab, it was just like
Mm-hmm.
a miserable experience
I
for
can
me.
relate. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then, I figured out, like, I got introduced to this other modality that like actually works. It's not like a cut, paste, plug and play kind of thing. It's like very customized per person. And it was like, oh, wow. Like it makes sense because the energy of the colors and the energy of the season matches my energy as a person, and the natural aesthetics that I'm drawn to. So like, I've been doing this for so long now, I can start to like, I can tell a summer a mile away because I'm a winter,
Mm-hmm.
I'm very intense. And I was like, oh, they're like way mellower. I was like, and then I can tell, like, I have a special eye for like projector summers. I was like, I can smell you. So, it's interesting because when you really come at it from an energetic perspective, it just changes the name of the game. And so it's really about having like putting that part of yourself forward and having that energetic feeling being transmitted really through the screen or the photo or whatever you want to call it. And people feel that, like I invite you, as you go around online looking at people's websites or social medias, like you have an innate knowing whether you feel like this person is being authentic and having
Mm-hmm.
integrity and if you can trust them. And it's learning how to listen to that whisper and lean into it, and, you know, lean into those people. So just start to pay attention to, when you go to someone's website, what are the like presuppositions that are going on in your head? What are you assuming to be true about this person, and where are
Mm-hmm.
those messages coming from?
Mm-hmm. Okay. And finally, could you tell the viewers and listeners how they can work with you and what are you currently offering? What are the programs? Yes, how they can contact you as well, if you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So great question. So, the first way, we have a website audit. So if you want me to go through and really look at your website and see what's working, what's not working, can do an audit, give you a report so you can implement things. And then if you want help actually executing them, me and my team can do that. You also have the option to do the color psychology work with me. So that's color magic. And we go in and I, create your personal color palette and then create your brand colors. So that's really the foundational piece that we do with all of our clients. So, right now you have the option to do that alone. For now, I always go back
Mm-hmm.
and forth of like, can I let people
Mm-hmm.
do this by itself? Because it's part of the whole
Mm-hmm.
process. And then from there, I do now, I put Magnetic Brand on hold for the moment, and now I'm doing photo shoot planning intensives. So, I've really
Okay.
distilled down the photo shoot planning process where, we can sit down in a couple of hours, figure out your storylines, map those out. And it comes with the color palette. So I kind of weave the whole aesthetic and the creative direction into it. And then you leave with the plan that you can go then use with photographers. And depending on where you're located, I have photographers that I certified in my method, and then I have hundreds of photographers all over the world that I've worked with. Some that I continue to partner with. And so that's a really great way if you want to get your visuals. And then if you really want the whole package deal, then I recommend, working with us on your brand and website, because through that you get the colors and you get the photo shoot support. So it's really like get the whole thing. So those are the different ways to work with me. And then I'll be launching a template shop, which is going to be really fun. We're working on the
Okay.
templates. So,
That's
you want to
exciting.
do something super big with custom, or you want to do something that, weaves in the color psychology, at, a different level, you can always do a template. So that's really fun.
Mhm. Well, thank you so much, Jordan, for that beautiful conversation. And I'm going to add to the description of that podcast all of the links to your website and social media so people can get in touch with you and they can start following you and see what magic you're creating.
Excellent.
Thank you
Well,
so much.
thank you so much, Marta. And if you're listening to this and you resonate and you have any questions or interested about working together, you can find me on Instagram at Ignite Your Soul Brand, and just shoot me a message, and I'm happy to chat with you more.
Thank you, Jordan. And I want to say thank you to all of the viewers and the listeners. Goodbye. Bye bye.